Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's David Palmer, Leo King here at highvibe.tv, the spiritual network. Hope everybody's doing wonderful for our show After Dark tonight, the spiritual talk show. And today is August the 6th of 2019. If you want to help support awesome shows like this, make sure that you check out highvibe.tv. We got awesome free content on there and on our apps. Have you checked out Apple TV, the app too? It's pretty cool. We got such great free content on there. And if you want to be part of the subscription aspect, then you get some of the exclusive content like my daily video horoscopes, my weekly sun sign horoscopes, my weekly intuitive and tarot, and so much more. And that's how you can support shows like this, by being free and out there on the World Wide Web. Tonight, I've got two awesome guests that have been very big champions here on After Dark. We got Sarah Paasch in the house, evolutionary astrologer, an amazing coach in all different ways. And we have the one, the only, the spirit advisor in the house, Dylan, who is a master in all crafts, but specifically his best, I would say, would be human design. Yeah. How you both doing tonight?
Doing good. Yeah.
You guys are doing good. You guys came in chippery.
Well, yeah, we're champions.
And you got like a hat on tonight, dude?
This is my Lionsgate portal hat. Don't know. It just came into my life, and I have to wear it for the duration of the portal. We'll see why.
Well, one thing about Dylan, you know, you come in so many different forms, man.
You know, I'm a Pisces. I'm an amalgamation of whatever flies through my consciousness that day.
Like, honestly, like, I it's kind of funny. Like, I see you, like, if I know you, but if I didn't know you, I'd be like, who's that guy? Like, you know, like from what I'm used to, or like it's a very interesting shift. And it's a shifty week anyway.
Yeah.
Like, I want to kind of open up the conversation about, I mean, I think this is a big week, right? Jupiter coming direct, but then on the same day, Uranus goes retrograde. And it's like, whoa. That, to me, I always look at, you know, direct and retrogrades as levers by God. Like, you know, How do you guys feel about that?
That's literally the exact same image I had, was like, vroom, vroom. And Mercury enters Leo that same day too. Yeah. So I had the image of expansion exchange happening. And this, like, Jupiter comes direct, and we've gotten like so far with Uranus and Taurus as far as this like new consciousness that we're bringing to the earth. And now Uranus is going retrograde to help us like bring it down, and Jupiter's like, and carry it forward.
Yeah. What are you feeling about it, Dylan?
Wow. I am feeling like, I think that the changes that Uranus and Taurus has been making, I think we've still yet to see them come to the surface. And I think when the retrograde energy kind of deepens, because I see that Uranian energy being like spirit energy entering matter in Taurus. Yeah. And it's like we've been evolved from the inside since Uranus has been in Taurus. And now when it goes retrograde, we're going to kind of see those, you know, let's say there's seeds that have been planted within us kind of activate. And so I'm really feeling like this sense of, okay, what's going to happen next? There's almost like this hush in the air as to like a big shift that we're going to see very soon.
Yeah, it reminds me of the Sentinels in the Matrix, and how they're drilling and they know they're coming. Because that's what Uranus is to me, drilling in Earth, like, because it's fall position in Taurus, because Uranus has a hard time with electricity, with Earth, like it's such fixed Earth, you know, it's not very up in the air, it's very, very physical. So it reminds me of Sentinels, and it's like they really want to get down there to the humans, but they like can't, because it takes forever to drill and drill and drill. But then the humans are like, they're coming, but like we'll party anyway, and then like, but they're still coming, you know. There's a slow part. And, you know, I always think of Uranus and Taurus, too, when you look at the history, you know, it was like countries changing themselves, one, and then two, like alliances completely going like quick. And I talked tonight on Deep Astrology about how Uranus and Taurus is, I think, at fall the most, because everybody has their own value, and that's hard for a collective to kind of come together when it's like, well, I don't want to wear that. I kind of like wearing this. And then, you know, it's like, well, I want to wear this, or I like this food, or no, I don't like that food. And you start to see it kind of going on in circles now, where people kind of are like, oh, wait, hold on. This is my value and that's yours. And I don't know if they really fully get along, you know? And I think that when you bring up this hush in the air, we're going to start to see there's all these events that have kind of all come together, and Jupiter's going to pop the lid off it, you know, like, here you go, here's the lesson. And with Uranus going, and then it's just like,
right. Yeah, it's almost like I see like in the dark depth of Earth, there's kind of like this force that's like wiring and gritting and just kind of like almost like in a mania way, creating this like new framework for consciousness, energy, whatever you want to call it. And then Jupiter comes direct and basically like, yeah, flips that on switch, and all that new like mainframe comes online. And I think there's like so many layers to that, because Taurus is like, you know, it's the second house too. So it's something that we almost take for granted within ourselves. It's a very formative piece of our being, because we comprise all 12 signs, each one of us, regardless of what's in our chart. And so I think like maybe we're just going to start, our superpowers are going to activate in the next 2 weeks or something, where we're going to feel also, though, in another layer, how society is being permeated by this change, and how like all these different bulls with their different horns might like start noticing that there is that difference and want to lock horns and use that Jupiterian like pride and bravado to kind of challenge each other's beliefs.
With the square to Neptune in its own sign.
Right.
Like, that's, yeah, it kind of can become delusional too about it. Like,
and we're clinging to our
not
identity.
Not be compassionate enough either. Like, no, I am the one that knows.
Right.
Sarah's just like,
No, yeah, I think all of that, on like a very real way, everything that's happening right now, I've been watching how the response is this kind of like, the bulls locking horns is like a really good way of putting that. And so much truth has surfaced collectively, like so many of our collective issues, and we are in a crisis in so many ways. And right now I'm just watching people like blame and say like, that's not in our nature. And like we were talking about, it's like not a geographical thing, like evil nature, killer instinct, or having this like this problem that we're watching of people like coming at war with one another. Like that's not a geographical problem, you know? And so it's like, but the bull horns are like so fixed, and their consciousness and their like, they think they are so clear on it and like what's right and what's just. It's going to be interesting to watch, because I think that there's also like a third way available, a middle path that has to do with kind of seeing beyond that and seeing above it, and really seeing the delusion of it, the illusion of the Neptune square that's like, hey guys, like we can't actually like heal harm by causing more harm. You know what I mean? Or like we can't beat fear with fear. Like we can't beat hate with hate.
We can't stop gun violence with more assault rifles.
Right.
Perhaps.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this too is interesting because all this Leo, Sun, Venus is coming together, and it's like trining Jupiter, which is awesome, but then it's making that quincunx to Saturn. That's kind of like a hold on for 1 minute. Like there's amazing opportunities everywhere, and I think a lot of people, you know, they're very conscious about astrology now, a lot of people. So they're like, yeah, Sun trine Jupiter and Venus trine Jupiter that's coming. And you can feel there is that, but there is that Saturnian like guard that's kind of like, are you sure? Because it's potent, right? I said tonight, it's the big three, the Sun, Jupiter, and Saturn, all in a perfect alignment, right? In their dignified homes, their home signs. We've never seen that in our life in the exact same moment, right? That's impossible mathematically speaking. So like this is a very potent moment in our lives where it's like, okay, yeah, you can get anything you kind of want to have happen in a weird way, but it's like, is it a jail you're going into to use it, or is it the like this new form of integrity that's being created that's unique? Because I think we can get caught into that old integral aspect of things that can actually be more about just doing the old again and not really about this new bigger world that's out there.
Right.
So it's like people operate with this South Node Saturn, which is creating a yod to Sun Venus with Neptune there, which adds more of the delusionment. And I actually thought of something crazy tonight in deep astrology, that Neptune and the South Node met during the election of 2016. Now we're at Neptune sextile the South Node, but within Capricorn and with Pluto and Saturn. So there's a bridge point here of that whole last 3 years of this energy and this weird kind of fog, but also like what we call integrity. And also Pluto and Saturn are asking us to rewrite all these Capricornian rules at the most extreme since the 1500s.
Right. And I think in the spiritual community, that even goes down to how we, how do we idealize like what it means to be enlightened or awakened or an awake person or a spiritual person? Does it mean a bunch of these rules that you have to have this conduct and this discipline in this very set way of like the light and, things like conscious leadership? It's all really high-minded and, even high-hearted. But I think that also there's a lot to be said for just reallocating a lot of this old energy into simple human joy, that is very, very ordinary. And it's not trying to make this big statement about how conscious of a being it is. It's just finding that you can tap into more of your consciousness just to like look at a flower and like feel the true life and have that be enough, have that beauty be enough to make you take that deeper breath and, just smile to yourself rather than like, I am a conscious leader. I have to go through another initiation to take it even deeper, and the collective is riding on this. And I just think there's a lot being rewritten in a very subtle way in terms of those kind of laws of spirituality and conduct of self.
Which are unwritten laws.
Right. And to me, sometimes they sound like they're echoing from organized religion in a way. Like,
it's spirituality is at a dangerous point of like just replaying that's what happens every 2,000 years. It's the same story replaying itself again.
Yeah.
Right.
Are we going to change that?
I think we have the potential to. I think that we are at a time now where we have personally and collectively like reached a point where we've never been before. I think that we've like completed things that as souls like we've like attempted to maybe multiple times and we haven't, and we have. And I think back to like the subtlety of it, I think it's like getting back to the simple, like very basic morality of just like being like respecting life, like the flower. And also I like that you bring up like the spiritual like discipline, and how like the word discipline has so much like Saturnian kind of like limitation feeling to it, or like strictness. But discipline is not a fixed definition of a word in spirituality. It is like a fluid definition that we constantly have to be in practice with. Like, what is the discipline when it's driven by the motivation, the deeper intention to really like respect all human life, to like respect, you know what I mean? So it's like, in that sense, I actually thought about you telling me this story about the bugs, the bad bugs.
Oh, right.
There were like these bad bugs, and how, and there's like that story with the Buddha too, how Buddha, like at one point, his discipline was to, he had to kill somebody who he knew was going to murder like was it a whole family? I don't know the whole story. So, but it's like that. It's like in that lifetime, he sacrificed himself in that way, where it's like, I'm not promoting that. I'm just saying. No,
it's good. Yeah.
Just like, it's just like the right and wrong, like to not be fixed in it, and to more so be like, it should never be justified to like dehumanize somebody. Like that should just never be right.
Right. And no amount of like rule sets or homogenized thinking about what makes right and wrong should be able to determine that in the moment. It should always be something that we arrive at in the truth of that moment, not because of just the way one thing has been thought of for 1,000 years or more. You know?
Well, it kind of makes me think this whole thing. So like the end of August is always Burning Man, right? And so over the years, they've made it harder and harder and harder to get there by like giving you a test whether or not you know how to be a burner. So it kind of creates this exclusivity of like the same things happening in spirituality. Like well, have you done this yet? Have you gone through your dark night of the soul yet? Have you done this yet? Have you done this? It's like the same thing as if a priest, like, did you do your 150 Hail Marys yet? You know, kind of energy.
Right.
And so, and then if you see the outspurts of Burning Man over the years with all these conscious festivals, and then they're putting on more rules and more aspects. And then I think the funniest one is I'm a DJ, right? So like ecstatic dance, I think is cool, but then at the same time, it's kind of like you're on your cell phone, you're out of here. You know what I mean? Like, or you're talking, you're out of here. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, wait, that doesn't really sound very fun. Like, you know, to me, like,
right.
I mean, as a Capricorn, like, I love a good rule, so I'm not going to be like, let's just fuck all the rules. Like, I do think that, like, I think it's good to reevaluate the rules, to, like, honestly have a conversation about them, and I don't think that it's good to be like, this is a rule, and we're going to keep it for the next 2,000 years. Like, it shouldn't take 2,000 years to reevaluate the rules and the structures we have in place. But the question that was coming to me when you were talking was not, like, what would the people in charge say is like right or wrong, but like what would Saturn say? Like if we actually like went to Saturn and said like what rules should we follow? Like
maybe he's changing with Pluto.
I think it.
And even you know, I think we had talked about it weeks ago about the hexagram, the change colors. Like there's obviously Saturn is going through a pretty gnarly like moment.
I actually imagine Saturn almost revisioning as like this grandmother, this like divine grandmother crone wisdom, like this, and it's the divine feminine, but it's like this older wisdom that is also really basic and simple, and just like wisdom's not up here, like it's grounded. You know what I mean? It's like clarity, it's doesn't like live. Yeah, it's like it just is, like truth just is, you know?
Yeah, I was hoping that Saturn returned to like a really crazy fun rock star, but that's not its job. So, but I think that this is a moment that is pretty intense. Like this week, I called this week the red zone as far as like from the eclipse season is like, because after this week it's Sun Venus, and then we're going to go into Venus Mars and Sun Mars. So this is really potent seeding. I love how you use seeding, and with Uranus coming retrograde, we are going to be receiving this stuff. So this is like this week where if anybody thinks they have it all figured out, they don't, because that Uranus will knock you down. Like, what? Like, it's a major shift. Jupiter is ready to go on his greatest adventure, but he also knows this is my last stand at my house. Like, I better kind of, like right now he's kind of like really upset that it's been this long of a retrograde, but at the same time he's like, well, I'm at my house. Like, I'm not going to come around here for 12 years. It's like those people that travel all the time, you know, it's kind of like, do they really ever live at home? He really doesn't ever live at home, but when he is home, he kind of enjoys it, but he kind of doesn't want to be there. He wants to go on, but he's like, wait, I have to go on into Capricorn, my fall sign, and meet the South Node there, where I will not be as strong as I've ever been in a long time. So there's like this kind of, I want to go, but I don't want to go. And I think everybody's kind of having that feeling. And then everybody thinks they've got it all figured out, when really Mercury's in shadow, and really Uranus is stopping. And there's this huge yod to the Sun and Venus going, oh, are you really happy? Are you really sure? With a yod to Neptune, a yod to Pluto, Saturn, a yod to the South Node itself. Like, that's intense with these dignified positions all hitting each other. Like this is like a make or break. I called it the entering the sheep with the creepy Saturn with his like cane, like get in there.
I'm getting this image of baby turtles hatching on the beach, and how there's like this mad dash for the ocean to get far enough from the shore that you're, you know, in the open ocean, so you have kind of that coverage of just the mass, you know, the depth of it. But that moment when those baby turtles are crawling along the beach, it's like the birds come, the killer fish come, like everything is there just trying to snap up the energy before the chance is over. And I feel like with the way that this year has woven itself, there are a lot of these kind of instances in our lives right now. It could be your friends that are like the birds that are trying to snap you up. It could be old opportunities that kind of fit your old ego structures. It could be, things that are a little bit comfortable, but they're not your fullest next quantum leap. And I think you got to get to the ocean. You can't let something kind of drift you off course and take your energy and plug you into something subpar, because it is a make or break time. And I feel like once Jupiter gets going and we go into the second half of this year towards 2020, it's like we've been talking about this for weeks. It's kind of like this locking in energy. And so
it's locked in.
Yeah. And so this week is kind of like, which flow are you going to take? Which tide is going to pull you out? Is it going to be one that pulls you into one of those cool things like in Finding Nemo where the turtles are just floating through deep, ocean? And, or is it going to be one that just takes you to the shark's den, or maybe just shallows where you never get to grow to your full size? I don't know. It's just an analogy. But
no, I think it's amazing. I think I loved how you used the word subpar, because I think that's what this old Saturn thing is just keep it subpar and you'll be okay. But it's like, it's almost a delusion in a way with the South Node there. It's a delusion. This is Jupiter going to beat out Saturn with the sun, and the sun has Mars, and the sun has Venus. So it's like, it's like, sorry, you guys down there. This is the only moment in the whole year where the Saturn Pluto aspect is you're lost. Like, you know what I mean? Like, sorry. There's too much dignified energy. It's an alignment. And this is where it's like, sorry, there is no such thing as subpar right now. I am not going to come into you at the end of this, the beginning of 2020, and be in your little weird cage.
Right. Because even if it feels comfortable now, or you feel exhausted now.
It'll get... Because Uranus is teaching you that if it is already broken, it's broken.
Right.
It is not fixable. Taurus is a very, very, I used Jerry Seinfeld tonight as like, Seinfeld came out 30 years ago, ironically enough, and like that whole show was a show about nothing but looking at the most ridiculous things in life that makes no sense, And so he went into the studio and he was like, "Why are you all wearing headphones? Like, you guys, we're all sitting next to each other. Like, we don't wear headphones on this show." And then they took them off and they were like, "Well, I hear my voice." And he's like, "But then are you listening to me talk? Like, or are you listening to your voice?" You know what I mean? And they were like, "Oh." So they look so dumb, like taking it off. But like at the same time, it's like, I think it's like, if it's so simple, it works. If it's way too complicated and you're overthinking it, and it's like, that's where that's got to go.
Right. And I think Taurus, loves
simplicity.
Right. The bare essentials. And Uranus is just like laser beaming off all the loose ends, all the
it's like suntan
crap.
in a old suntan booth, like with UV radiation, like let me get tan, like
just like microwaving it off.
Throw me in a microwave, please.
I feel like it's all like the whole, if it's broken, it's broken or whatever. But then there's also at the same time on the opposite side of that coin is like also that that invention mindset, like that discovery mindset of Uranus, and totally Taurus, where it can be like, it can take something that everyone else said was a piece of shit and like refurbish it into like a super nice vintage something.
Sounds like Capricorn.
So, well, and
vintage.
Okay, so it's like, I think Taurus does that too, but it's either way. I think it's like there's
Taurus
also
is
something.
the second sign, so it's new.
Okay.
Like when you plant a seed, like it would be like taking a plant that's already been planted and then splicing it and like, what do you call it? Cloning it and then bringing it back in to regrow it because it's great.
It's also, though, having an appreciation for the value of something beyond just it being new. It's like Taurus is the appreciation of the value and the beauty of something. So I think Taurus also has the ability to see something that sometimes we can just miss. We can just like walk right by it. We can be like, oh, it's just a chair. But Taurus can be like, wait, it's more than that. And they can find, like, they can point out the quality item in like a row of things. They can see that. They can catch that with their eye more than any other sign.
I just think I use like Uranus transits very simply in the decans. So the first decan of any sign is, when Uranus comes in, is like, oh, I think that this is like, go back to your life in 2010 and to 2011. Like, this identity. And so for me, it was, I'm a reality star and da-da-da-da-da, and I'm in this and I'm in this. And I thought that was totally it. And by the end of the transit, it's like, here I am sitting on highvibe.tv doing this and fuck reality shows of being a competitor and da-da-da-da-da. And like that whole time, my ego thought this whole other thing.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's like that old. I'm more so saying like this year, and in terms of waking up to like who we really are, what we really want to do, and this feeling almost like beat down by the astrology in the last couple of months. I feel like this month it's all trines, like mostly all trines, right? And trines are all about like free will and active participation. It's there, all the resources are there, but you have to take it to the potential that's living inside of it. Like it's not going to be activated by something outside of you. You're not going to be forced to make something out of that. And so I feel like there's this opportunity to not just like to I think guard something vigilantly and nurture it and like have that Uranian innovative sense of like try it again, but don't use the Saturn wisdom of like you've gotten so much feedback of what hasn't worked. Like you have tried it so many angles and you've gotten so much feedback. Begin again, but do not start over. Like use what you've learned. Use what you've learned and think of something, like allow something new to come in that you haven't imagined as possible. So go bigger, go grander, go, but like don't give up on it yet in that sense of, not everything. I'm just saying, I think that there's also that needs to be considered too, is it's like there's just this angle of it that we've never actually given it the permission to be as great as it could be. Maybe we're keeping it too small and that we're trying to fix something rather than like letting it grow bigger.
Well, I think when I look at the way that this is at, it's like with the eclipses that have happened, if you look at Mars last year that squared Uranus, Venus retrograde that opposed it. We have the moon right now opposing Uranus as we're speaking in fall position of Scorpio. There is this kind of sense of like Uranus wants us to move to the highest octave possible. And its number one way of doing that is by saying goodbye. Like, like I'm moving forward, like I'm moving to something new. And with the Sun-Venus aspect and with Mars now coming off of the quincunx to Pluto, where it's almost like trying to hold our identities together. Like, no, don't go into that place. There might be grand trines, but they're almost being fooled by tricksters, Neptune and Saturn and Pluto. And that's what's scary. That's what makes this scary, is because it is great, but Uranus is semi-squared to Neptune still, and it will be all year. So there is the delusion that we can't fix it, but Neptune's like adding the delusion of fixing, and I think Uranus is like, we can't move on if you're going to still keep trying to fix something that's been so clear. The emotions were clear, and that's what I think Mercury leaving Cancer this week and coming into Leo was like, I have to be bold enough to say goodbye.
Like, but not fix it, but completely let it die in the form that you've been trying to fix, and let it completely rebirth itself in the way that it needs to live now, or recycled that energy into something completely new. But it's like, yeah, I'm seeing that there's so much completion and so much like it's not going to work the way we've been trying to force things to work. Like it's done. It's totally done in that way. And we can't keep addressing these things from that level. So I totally agree with that. And it's like saying, because I know that, I'm willing to open myself to see what does it actually need to be? Like, what is it actually supposed to be? Or what is it? And maybe it's nothing. I think it's
Michael Luton put it really good on this week, on Monday, or yesterday. He showed a person tumbling down the stairs, as Uranus always is a retrograde. Like, oh, I didn't predict this, and I'm tumbling down the stairs, and it's not the way that I want it to go. But with Saturn in Capricorn, with this kind of karmic duty, and with the way that these, and he doesn't go too deep into it, but I loved his image, is like you come out kind of like, okay, yay, like you made it, like you tumbled, but then yippee. But there is a moment of like, sorry, if you really think you know how it's going to go, goodbye. Like,
yeah.
And there is going to be something with this Jupiterian teacher with Uranus retrograding. And this is where I got into Helio today. Mercury starts right now this week on Chiron in Aries. And because Mercury's 88 days around the sun, it goes through signs really fast. So at the end of this week, as the sun and Venus are literally like right at their conjunction point coming into next week, literally right as Uranus retrogrades and everything, Mercury is conjunct Uranus. So that 30-degree separation that's actually happening in Helio is right now Uranus is at 3 degrees of Taurus in Helio, and Chiron is at 3 degrees in Aries. And Mercury literally does 30 degrees this week, and literally we think there's an ego thing coming into this week. Like, oh yeah, but it's like, no, there's a deformity to that ego. It's actually not. And then it comes into the freedom and the release spot of Uranian at the end, right when Uranus retrogrades and moves forward, and it's like, whoa. And then Mercury's, of course, in Leo, which it's like, why am I doing that? Was I just blurred into my deep, because those last degrees of Cancer are so tied emotionally and rooted, and even though this is very Capricorn, there is a commonality between oppositions, right? Like there is I don't want to unroot this, and Mercury's like kind of lost there right now. Like it's literally just like, that was a long retrograde. It was 24 days. It was like it was like mathematically the longest it could be. And I think that the Leo is going to go up with Mars, and Mars is coming to the 28th degree in the next week and a half, that's where the eclipse, the big one, was with Regulus. And that to me is the signal of cutting that eclipse out of the last 2 years, which was about the true heart. And then with Mars retrograde last year, you went the farthest from your heart that you could go. And now you have to come back to it and the courage to own it fully or go to jail. This is the get out of jail free card right now.
Yeah, I think you got to really show up and decide that you matter, though.
Yeah.
And that's just something that I've been gleaning from what I've been observing in people and kind of the patterns that occur in readings that I get, is a lot of people, and this makes me think of Uranus in Taurus kind of as maybe on some level of that spectrum, and a reawakening of the feminine, Taurus being the first feminine sign in the zodiac. I feel like a lot of the feminine consciousness is waking back up to itself, is like remembering like, oh, I'm here. I got stuff I want to do. And so I think that just has brought to my attention that like there's a lot of us that forget that we matter in our own lives. We put ourselves behind others almost by conditioning or by survival instinct. And I think to make a moment like this matter, you have to matter to yourself. You have to be able to look yourself in the mirror and be like, what are we going to do? What am I here to do? Maybe just for me.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not for the collective. Maybe it's not to save the world. Maybe it's just like, what do I need to do to get back in touch with my voice, my feeling of my heart beating in my chest, my joy, my ultimate power as a conscious sovereign being, my joy in this life. So I think that's where a lot of us can step up. Like if you're curious right now, well, I don't know what to do, like with all this energy and all this potential, check stop number 1. Do you matter to yourself? Do you acknowledge yourself on a daily basis? Do you acknowledge your desires? And what beliefs have you absorbed from the world that make you feel that that's shameful, or that make you deny those basic needs of self, of soul, of spirit?
Deny or fight. Like,
right.
It's also like, or there's an antagonistic relationship with people where it's like, that's where I think the deformity of like the mercurial deformity, it's like, I think that it has something to do with not thinking right now. Like I really feel that if we're still kind of like, it's still in shadow. Like let's just like not ignore that it's still in Cancer. And I told Dylan before this, I was like, if I start talking about something and analyzing it, will you just stop me and ask me a question about astrology to like get me off that train? Because there's no mental solution needed right now. Like there is no talking things out. And that's the whole like, we're going to fix this thing that's broken. It's like, no.
Well, I think it's mental away from emotion.
Wait. What do you mean?
It's mental, but it's about not attaching the mental aspect too emotionally to it all.
Right.
Not mentally trying to solve.
Through the emotion, creating the question.
And then also looking for the answer from that same place.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like solve the emotion by using your body to go into creating joy. Like I went to the fair this last weekend and was just going on every thrill ride and was just like, I need this in my backyard all the time. Like it is like, how do we just get, because when you're in that place, like, yes, you know you matter, but it's not even like, you don't even think about self-worth. No. You're just like living and you just feel good.
Well, and there's something that, you know, both you just said, and I want to go back to even with Sarah's point through what Dylan was saying about putting yourself first and everything. I think that if we look at 2020, it's like, the cages are pretty much locked, right? For most of it, at least. Sure, Saturn comes into Aquarius, but there is a lot of this really intense eclipse energy that's going to be very locking down. So at this moment, it's kind of like, if it is fixable and if it is that vintage thing, then you can always come back to it. But this is a moment to jump the fence and see what else is out there, because there is not going to be another moment for that. Like, and if you think about, this is the longest period of Saturn's reign where it doesn't like hit fire and it hits the most intensity, right? When it leaves Sag, it goes into Capricorn and then Aquarius and then Pisces, and that's the winter and Saturn's ruling energy. And so with this last moment of dignified Sun, dignified Jupiter, and with Venus and the Sun coming together in a yod, the universe is literally pointing at the finger of God to the Sun and Venus, with the Jupiter trine saying, literally fuck it and go see what's on the other side of the fence. That Saturn quincunx is trying to say, no, don't stay over here and try and fix this old piece of shit. But it's like, I can come back and fix that old piece of shit whenever.
Right.
Whenever I can. But I need to see what else is out there. I have to. Or else I'm going to not put my heart will not be able to know fully. And that's where people are scared and they're terrified. And I can tell you as a Leo, my whole life has been jumping that motherfucking fence.
Oh my God. I just had the coolest visual of, because Sun Venus, it's also the superior conjunction from the Venus retrograde that happened back in last late fall, October, November. So it's also like the goddess, the feminine, has been on this journey, went really deep into the underworld, got all of the shadows, went all the, like, lost everything, shedded everything, and then came back up. In the story, in the myth, when she comes back up, and her partner, her counterpart, is sitting in the throne, just like, oh, like, didn't even acknowledge her. She's like, kill him. Like, so there's this, like, I'm done and I'm ready, and it's like there's just this like, go for it, like own what you've been through, own what you've learned, own what you've gained on the journey and what you've lost, and in this way of empowering yourself to be like, I'm free to keep walking forward and to know who I am.
And I think people associate more Aquarian with freedom than Leo, but this is a very, like, the freedom starts first within your heart and your happiness. That's and then both signs are, like I said, are octaves of each other. So there is this with Jupiter, like, go look, so go experience something. And I think Uranus and Taurus is retrograde. Like, you might want to play with some other thing and make sure that it's a value. You cannot contrast the value of something with especially Uranus, without an experiment of something new and different that's of a totally different value. And because this is a relationship, money, project situation with Venus and the Sun, and with Venus ruler retrograding, and with, you know, Jupiter coming direct, this is about seeing the experiments of other valued energies, even relationships and situations, that you only get this big moment to do. And then everything else, if you look at all through it, it's just stuck in that vibe. So you almost want to have that. And we're finishing the Saturn-Pluto conjunction of the 82-83 Libran cycle that never has completed fully until it conjuncts January 12th, of 2020. So it's like we're in this 6-month last cycle of eclipses already happened, and while we're at the last 6 months of the Saturn-Pluto last 37-year conjunction point of a Libran relationship issue.
And it's collective. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like the word paradigm was coming to me when you were saying that this is not, it's like, it is personal because that's how it plays out, right?
Yeah.
And it's also not. It's collective, and it's this like waking up to like, where am I still trying to apply old relationship paradigm fixes and solutions to a reality that no longer even stands on that ground. Like it's not even, it doesn't work. And then that's where Mercury, I think in Cancer, is like that nostalgia of like, this is when times were great, when we used to help each other like this. And I don't know.
But it's also, Mercury's in a zone to where the eclipse, like it just came off the eclipse degree of 24 degrees. But then more than that is Pluto only went to 23 Capricorn. So technically, the access point from 24 to 0 or to 29 Cancer, right, had Uranus squaring it during all that spot. But now we're getting ready for the Pluto next year to start opposing. So Mercury's in a zone that, sure, it might understand, okay, yeah, this doesn't work in the identification, but there's this Capricorn Pluto that hasn't fully like destroyed the emotional roots of that this is not the right track. And this is Mercury hanging in that spot, kind of like, oh, no, it'll be okay. Like, you know, I'm still going to stay. And that's where it's like, you know, I did a big video about how the work we all do it's hermetic. It's mercurial because it's not emotional. Like, sure, empathy and all these things are part of it, but the data is the data of that's what, like in your human design, the gene key is this, your unconscious chart is this, your conscious chart is that. It's like, you do not have these gates. I'm sorry to say, like, there is just a point where at the end of the day, it's like, I don't care how emotional, I know you want this in your life or whatever. I'm sorry. Like, that's what it says. Or a tarot reader, it's like, I'm sorry, you pulled the tower, you pulled that. Like, it's like, I'm not going to redo the reading.
Yeah.
I love that point.
And that's where I think a lot of people, and I call that the whole conscious, like, astrology community with CoStar and all that, because it's like, you know, they only watch it and only like it when it tells them what they want. One.
So the way to really screw yourself over right now is to try and apply someone else's template to your life in hopes that it's going to work for you. If you're not honoring your truth, your fate, your code, your blueprint, your design in moments like this, and if you're, unfortunately to say, if you're not tuned in to some degree or not tapped in to some degree to who you actually are, that's where we go about with these kind of more discreet attempts at strategically building a safe path forward when consciousness itself is demanding of us to crack open from within and shine that soul light out like Uranus and Taurus can do, and like really jump the tracks onto your tracks. You're not leaving anything bad behind. You're just leaving the mass homogenized, you know, where all those turtles are going right into the shark's mouth or whatever. You know, you found a secret cave that you could smell the algae from because you have a special sense of smell because you're unique and we all have unique gifts. So like your unique sense of self is so important right now. It's like the key to your future.
And what I got is that this is like, because it's Leo, this is whether you're just a prince or a princess or a king or a queen. Like, because to Sarah's point, she's right. Like, it's about, we have to find our fun, but then we have to take that to like really owning that in all aspects of our life, where that is in every place. Like, that's what a king or a queen does. But a prince or a princess kind of waits for their turn. Like, oh, I'll just keep doing the same thing. I'll keep riding that horse out there and
someone will marry me and it'll all get better.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but the prince and the princess are still needing something, right? Like, they're still waiting for that. And the queen and the king are like giving of themselves. They're like, I have this benevolence, this generosity, this overflowing abundance of like self.
To a point.
Well,
of self, I was gonna say like
no, but it's not
the whole royal court. The 11th house of Gemini for Leo is not going into the bedroom unless it's for a quick fun time. It's not a long-term Jupiterian kind of long-term thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like an Aquarius would be,
so we're all
right? Like
clear.
sometimes like, oh, the friends can stay at the house all month. You know, it's like as a Leo, wait, no, you have like a day or two, I told you. You know what I mean?
So yeah, that's what I mean though. It's they're not using it in the manipulative, emotionally driven
Correct.
ways.
Yeah,
no, it's like it's 100% like
Clear.
it's mature. It's
Yeah, it's
mature.
clear.
It's why it's clear. It's sovereign. But it's badass in that way. Like it's like, yeah, honey, come over. I'll cook you some dinner. Like I have time for that. I'd love to. I'd love to share.
And then,
but it's genuine.
And then I have that tomorrow, like a Leo will always say.
Yeah.
I have that tomorrow, just to make
you
it
can't
clear
stay.
without saying you can't stay, or you can stay, but I do have to go here tomorrow.
Yes. So it's like clear, direct, like no bullshit.
True.
Yeah. And I think that that's where we can use, like, just watch yourself. Watch, like, what seat are you holding within yourself?
Yeah.
Are you going into situations in this, like, whiny, like, I'm a princess, though. You have to love me. Like,
Yeah, that's big
It's
time.
like, or your face. Or are you like, I'm a queen. You have to get out of my way. Like, I'm going somewhere. Or, I don't know.
Yeah,
And
because
the
there's
Aquarian.
a proper queen. Like, you're right.
Right.
Like,
Right.
This is not a Queen of Swords or something. You know?
No, I see it. No, I see it kind of like the Aquarian water bearer queen, where it's like, I'm gonna give my water, you know, and also like enjoy going to fill up my
cup
first. Yes.
And jumping the fence to do that, though. Like, I'm gonna go see what this kingdom can really have.
Yeah. Well,
Because if you don't, then you're just kind of like, well, I'm going to just keep the kingdom as what my lineage kept it as.
Mm-hmm.
So quick human design nerd out, because I'm just seeing
I
these
wanna hear that
connections.
nerd out.
Yeah.
So when we look at Pluto and human design in terms of transits, we're seeing it as this kind of delayed shut-off switch. So as it moves very slowly through each gate, it's literally saying to the collective, you're done with this energy. Now, the collective takes maybe even generations to fully integrate that pulse of like, oh, it's off now. What has Pluto been going through most of the beginning of this year and last year? Gate 54, where Saturn is now in line 1, which is like the essence of it.
How long is a gate in degrees of astrology?
It varies, actually.
Oh.
So it could be 1.5, it could be 2.
Wow.
It's not something I could say precisely for each one, but Pluto has been shutting off this idea and this energy of ambition that says to our subconscious or whatever that you have to serve first in order to rise up in the world. In order to ascend, you have to play the game. You have to be the second wife. You know, it's called the marrying maiden in the traditional I Ching. You have to be the one that lets other people shine and just wait for your turn in the ascension process. Pluto has been moving through that gate. Pluto has been saying to our collective unconscious, look, it's not about playing other people's games anymore. This energy is not in play on your planet anymore. You have to jump the fence into your direct path to your ascension. Now, with Saturn in the 54, when we talk about Saturn in human design, we see it as you don't even experience Saturn unless you're out of alignment. So if you're in the 54 energy of being subservient to someone else's model of ambition or ascension, you are going to experience that resistance. You are going to experience that Saturnian, oh shit, the door's locked, the gate's locked. But if you jump the fence, you're going to go right around Saturn and straight into your direct path, which is so much easier to find in Leo season because we're in the heart.
But that's what's interesting to me, because I showed people today in deep astrology like how Saturn's transit, since you have to think like when it made its opposition to Pluto, it's been coming towards the whole time, and it's going through, especially after it left Libra, right? Like it's been going through just so much of where Pluto laid its end games. And so Saturn with the South Node is at a very deep already end game, and people are trying to play that game. But it's over.
Yeah.
So it's a delusion. And that Saturn Pluto brings Saturn in front of Pluto. So now Saturn will kind of set the integrity with the South Node away from it that will be really real. So I think we're in a place where integrity is really not defined.
It's redefining itself.
And it's redefining itself. So it's like if you're playing off some sort of integral position, it's like...
Like ego bolstering position, not necessarily like... I was thinking about
or
this...
restricting, because there's some parts of integrity and responsibility that you don't have to have. It reminds me like the Seven of Pentacles. Like, do you really have to rake the leaves because you sold the house already? Like, of course it would be of like really good integrity to go clean the liens up for them because you sold the house to them. But it's like, really, they probably already have a gardener that's going to come in, or they have some kids that are going to clean those leaves. Like, the house is sold, it's not yours anymore. Like, you're going to go waste your energy and go clean up those leaves when the house is sold?
Well, actually, I've been thinking about this though. I'm like, and I think the answer is not fixed. It is dependent upon the person who is asking the question to themselves and who they're hearing the right or wrong answer from. Is it from themselves? Like, who are they getting the validation from? Mm-hmm. So it's like, if I don't rake those leaves, am I personally going against my own inner code of like what I actually do believe and value is right or wrong? And if I value that as for myself,
but what if that code's been causing you to always be late to the next thing, which is the one thing that you really want in your life?
Then that's not your code. That's somebody else's code.
But that's why I think the codes are being rewritten for integrity, because actually people could get sucked into, well, look it's a family coming in and they probably don't have raked leaves, so you constantly...
But those are all shoulds. Yeah. Those are all external influences.
Are you trying to prove you're a good person to the great Saturnian God in the sky and trying to just keep up his little commitments of like, instead of actually making the flight to your new life that you're actually supposed to be a part of?
Right. That's where the whole idea of coming all the way back full circle in the very beginning, when we talked about the fundamental, like the true law, like just stick to like the true laws, like just be a kind, respectful person and stay in your lane.
The moral laws.
Right. Like just stay in your lane. Just like stay in your lane. Like just don't cause harm and stay in your lane.
Which can be scary because we don't have any formulas for what our own lane looks like necessarily. And especially this week, we're in the 7th gate and the sun transits. 7th gate is all about really logical leadership. So it's about knowing the pattern ahead of time and being confident about where we can lead ourselves into the future because there's a pattern. And I think, like, if you think of in human design terms, 70%... That makes so much sense. What?
So that makes so much sense.
70% of us are generators, people who are here to respond moment by moment to what life brings them in order to essentially unleash their vitality and see what it creates. These beings don't know what they'll create once they start. They don't even know if it's going to work or if that next step or that next connection to keep using that energy is going to be there. So like collectively, it is pretty scary to stay in your lane and to step into that next, because we're not used to feeling confident about not knowing where we're going. And so we do have to rewrite integrity in that sense of, maybe integrity for me is just not showing up to anything anyone expects me to, or that even I expected myself to, and having to make a complete yod in some other direction, and probably scaring ourselves a little bit in doing that.
Yes. And it scares others by watching them have you do it. Mm-hmm. It just reminds me of like staying in your lane. So when I drive the Corvette, it's the loudest production car on the planet, right? So I don't really just stay in one lane, you know what I mean? My lane is any lane that I want to go towards, that I'm having fun. If I see like a tourist, because we're in LA and Orange County, there's lots of them, and they're like driving their car or whatever, I'll go by it and I'll see the kid in the back seat of the car and I'll just like, right, you know what I mean? You see the family go like this or whatever, and that's my lane, and I laugh, and then the kids laugh, and then the parents don't laugh, but I like am like, Saturn, I got you, and the kids are laughing. That's this whole Leo Jupiter story, is like watching the old people and it's actually what to play, I would say, is like, good luck.
I think anytime like we are acting through influence or in order to influence or because of an influence, we're out of our lane or we're out of integrity. Like I feel like you don't have to know where you're going to know when you're in your lane. You can know if I change the way I behave because all of a sudden Dylan's not being cool to me. So now, even though I really value being a kind person, I'm going to be a dick to you because now you deserve it. There's like this justification, right. Like that's bullshit. And that actually is like I think that is a pretty gold standard. Like there's never an excuse. Like, are you excusing things for yourself because you're like, oh no, it's okay because so-and-so did this. So I deserve to do that. And it's like, that's disempowering. You know what I mean?
That's
like
the arrogance of separation.
Yeah. And it's the prince. It's the freaking prince who's like, but I get to do this because I don't know. I'm just like, stay in your lane means more so.
It's very
like
Sagittarian. I get what you're saying. I'm just saying that if the kid wants me to put it down, this life's about fun.
That's who you are always, though.
Exactly.
Right.
But it's like, it's not out of integrity or harming anybody by having a chuckle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that you have to be like, to be on, like,
and I think that this is
harm.
about who's way showers. I said tonight that not everybody is, and I love that Dylan brought up the whole 60% of people generators, because not everybody here, and even in the way in laws of nature, like not everything became a star. Not everything is going to be a star. There's people that are going to choose at this moment the sheep route, which is not a bad route. Like that's their route. But there are people here that came here to be a bright light and show a way. Like that is what Leo does. Like without it, there is no way, or there is nothing. So there is no Saturn. There's no nothing. They all need it. So it's like, who's going to do that? Who's going to jump the fence and who's going to go show the way and come back? Like Krista, or I can't say that or people get all crazy, but my family, I'm a Mayflower family. Now we're being persecuted as like white privilege. It's crazy now. When really, doing all my genealogy, like my family were really good Quakers, and it was the hundreds of years after the Pilgrims that started fucking with the Indians. Like, you know what I mean? Not the first people that showed up. You know, that was the last thing that you would do. You only have 35 people. Like, you know what I mean? And like, you're just trying to survive. And most people died. I had family, in my genealogy, I had family that died on the Mayflower, like, you know? So there's this point of like, and I'm using my family, actual truth. My family left for religious freedom because King James was like, oh no, we're going back to Catholicism. And they were like, fuck this, I'm going here. There's a point to where it's like, you got to take the ship out into the adventure and see and be a way shower and go. And who's really going to go? And that's really what a real lane is. You know what I mean? Like, and showing that lane. And guess what? Everybody follows.
That's real leadership.
Yeah.
Yep.
And, you know, like in the 7th gate energy that we're in this week, the low frequency is arrogance. When the self-righteous path becomes a means to self-validate, you know, whatever actions that we might take to make ourselves feel empowered. It rises into the gift frequency of leadership once it's not about anyone else, once it's just about showing our own way. And that's when it literally becomes leadership. You start to show your own way, you're creating the way for other people to go, to find themselves too.
Well, I think your logical route gate that you're talking about, 7th gate, is that what it is interesting because it's like, this kind of helps with the understanding of the Mercury retrograde that's direct now, but in shadow and everything. It's like the patterns have already continued to show up. Of course that there's this energy on this gate. At this moment when Uranus is about to retrograde, at this moment where Mercury is in a shadow, at these very deep, very hard emotional Cancerian degrees, that you do have to logically go, these patterns are just not working. Instead of continually being like, no, I can change the pattern. Like, you know, it's like, no.
Or if I just get better at the pattern, maybe it'll work better for me.
Yeah.
If I become more perfect, because logic is always searching for perfection.
Yeah.
Well, and it might work better for a short amount of time. And that's the square to Neptune. That's like, it might, it like you, and then there's that Pluto that's like that zero numerology, right? It's like, oh yeah, you're gonna grow and grow and grow, and then multiply by 0 once, you're done. So I don't know. I also have been thinking though about the percentages that's been coming to me too, the human design, and just what it would be like in this like new awakening we're at, and this point where it's like, wow, like I don't think we actually know like what's next, or like what we're, the full picture is and what we're capable of and where we're going. But I feel like we could tap into these systems that are these transmissions of like data that everything around us is like, this is a way to see it. And what if we like just all lived our design or our roles, and we didn't feel disempowered because I'm a generator versus a reflect, like, it's not even about power and it's not about image. It's about that Aquarian coming together for the greater good of everybody and bringing your unique contribution, your unique code, and like showing up and feeling really fucking good about that, because there is no other person with your exact makeup and design. Even if there's 70% generators, like that doesn't take away the unique and essential quality that you bring. And like, why wouldn't you want to feel good just being like, yeah, that's my role and I want to feel good about that, versus like everyone wanting to be like the top power hungry,
everyone wanting to be a manifester, for instance.
I don't know, like that. But even just the power struggle, and then it's like, and I think that there's something too with like aligning to something greater than yourself. So having that like that death of self-image and being willing to have that loss, that Uranian, like, I'm willing to like lose whatever I think I need or I am in order to show up for like what actually will carry not just me forward, but everything forward, Yeah.
Well, and I think it's just it's a gnarly moment going into the data, is where if we go back to the spiritual community talk and the trying not to rewrite old religious codes and so forth, but us all three being very good with using data and spirituality, that's why we're in the astrology, planetary, human design realms, right? That's what we do.
Yeah.
But a lot of the community does not, right? Like, it's kind of like, no, if you just eat that, like, you'll be fine. Like, but it's like, there's no scientific data on that yet. You have to have some sort of data point. And that's where the spiritual community, I think, is having to bridge. So I watch a lot of Jordan Peterson right now. He's very controversial. A lot of people think, he brings up a lot of things on how the data to the feminists, that actually it's like, the gender equality and the pay is actually not just due to the old patriarchy. Like, he uses data to actually show that it's not that it's actually in these areas and so forth. So it like blows people's minds, because it's like, oh wait, more men are in prison, more men are commit suicide, more men, so it's like when you want to try and equate things, like there's actually like, don't go into that game until you actually know the numbers, because they're different than what is being projected as looked upon, right?
Right.
And that's what's happening, I think, when I do a reading for somebody, and all three of us, I bet you go through the same thing, right? They show up to the reading like with their ultimate projection of like how everything is, right? And then you look at the reading and you're like, well, you have to like learn as a reader, right? Like, I'm going to erase your little projection here and the cockroaches that are creating that, and I'm going to go and clean them off and see what's underneath there and get back to you, And I think that there's a lot of that going on right now,
Yeah, even in terms of the numbers, it brings to mind, and I know this is a sensitive topic, but it's just to paint a picture of how we perceive things versus the reality. So I think it was Neil deGrasse Tyson shared a tweet.
I saw that tweet.
Where he was speaking of how many lives are lost to certain causes every 48 hours, and the numbers were quite high. To medical errors, suicide, things of this nature.
Homicide by gunfire, flu.
Right. It
was in the hundreds.
Things that
every 48 hours.
We take for granted, basically. And how there's just so many more people dying in 48 hours than we realize, but we put this huge, and these people's lives, of course, were taken from them in a horrific way, and it's not okay in any way, shape, or form. But it just goes to show you how the collective will value and believe a spectacle, something that takes your attention and is like charged emotionally and collectively and tribally even, especially with the tribal association of like, these are our people, those are their people, our people killed our, you know, their whatever. And just, you know, our minds will take that and run with it and write the codes to our reality based on that. And
yeah, like, but it's like nobody's...
When we have these objective tools to like place a template over life and see, oh, that's where things actually are, whether it be data or a system like astrology or human design, it's like we come back to the real potential, the real picture of things, and the place where we can actually reach real empowerment and make real change, and we can see clearly. So
that's like exactly when he was talking earlier about the emotions. And this is like when we were sitting down, my guides were like, the mind is a wonderful servant but a terrible master. And so it's like, how do we gain the power of objectivity? And it's like, get neutral and step away, and like, don't, you know, that attachment, that like emotional attachment. This is so powerful. This is so true. And I feel like it's so funny because you said that, and I imagine like if somebody just says it louder or says it 5 more times, then it will be true.
Right.
And it comes back to like, truth is truth. Truth is truth. Like, we don't have to defend the truth.
Right.
It is objective.
Yeah.
It is neutral.
And then Sam Harris debated Jordan Peterson a while back about, well, what is truth? So there's the scientific truth of like, if you split this and you split this atom, you're going to create a hydrogen bomb, and that's undeniable or whatever. And then there's the battle of moral truths, right? And so it's like, there's got to be a way for these two to intersect, you know? And that's what I think astrology and these things do. We take these archetypes and we take these mythologies and we take actual positions of planets, and we are mixing those together and finding moral truths and finding also actual data truths. But you also have to look at the history of what happened the last time these planets did this, and what was the last time. And so there's a history. That's the actual scientific data of astrology, is like, what happens every time there's a full moon, lunar eclipse with Saturn, per se, like we just had. You got to like look back in its home sign. That's another layer of data, you know what I mean?
But also science works progressively as well in that Uranian way, where it's like, it's also experiential today. So we look back factually, and like we get the data and we collect it and we review it and we talk about that and we discuss it and look at all that. And we're still looking and listening to like how it's playing out right now. So that's also like, it's creating itself.
Yeah.
It's a very like snazzy, swazzy,
swanky.
Swanky, that's the word. But I feel like that's why I feel like this month is about discovery, because we've never been to this point. And yes, we have all this data, and there's all these things, but there's like this new scientific, new data that might come out into the collection. New rules.
If you jump the fence.
Right.
Yeah.
Because if you're in the same space, it's not like it's just going to show up.
So when you say jump the fence, how can you practically tell somebody, like, what does that mean for them? What did they do?
I mean, literally, like, it's about right now looking at your total happiness and going, where is the space that you're not feeling happy? So I said that one first. So where it's like, gosh, this is just, It's like, okay, well, where is there some sort of attachment right now with the Pluto-Saturn thing? 2, where is it that there's this complicated situation that has been overly looked at to a point to where you're just like, you've looked at it so much and it continually brings up a pattern that just, fuck. And you've applied every other aspect, that this is the point to go, well, it's maybe time to go to a new experiment. It's time to go to a new place. And it's so ironic as I'm doing all my Mayflower history and it's intense, and we're doing a documentary here at High Vibe about it because it's intense and what, like, literally the lineage to me with it. But it's crazy because, like, that's Jupiter and the sun. Like, there's this, you must take an adventure. You must go seek for the last moment. You have to remember that the sun last year in Leo squared Jupiter in Scorpio. So it was like the adventure was looking into, I'm going to take this on and go all the way as deep as I can with it. And with Uranus now retrograding in Taurus, like, it did have a Venus retrograde there. And ironically, now we have the Sun Venus coming together. This is a moment where you do jump the fence, where you do go look and see what else is out there. Or not. And it's fine. There's no judgment about it in any other way. But I did show the judgment card tonight, and I said, this is Jupiter with the horns blaring. Dirt, 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 dirt. And there's this part where it's like, do you rise up and know the calling, and know, even though you don't know what they're really going to ask, God's going to ask you to do, but you know that you're in a place where you feel like a little bit dead inside, and you've tried to figure out why you're gray and but you know that, the trumpet's finally here, and it's like, do you go to the calling or not? Do you go to this place that's going to seem scary? But that's what faith is, Jupiter. That's what faith is. Faith about going into a place you've never adventured to before, that you've never seen. There's no data except for the data that wasn't working. So it's like, you have to go find new data that you haven't seen yet. And it's actually, that's where fortune lies. The fortune is not, it's kind of contradictory to the original part of like, the fortune always lies within ourself, right? Right? But it's like, this is about like realizing that, okay, yeah, you found the fortune in yourself, but we're dealing with situations that are external Uranian, that are in Taurus, that are actually like physical situations and people, with Venus being the ruler of that, and it's in Leo, about romance and about all these situations. It was Saturn Pluto finishing. You got to add all that data and go, this is the moment to jump and see what else is out there before I get caught up into the biggest, of all time. Like, and like, I think we'll all make it through this, but it's just going to be so intense where it's like, gosh, man, that's like stripped away of your happiness, stripped away of your emotions, stripped away so much. And oh my God, now I have replayed the data so many times. That's what, Albert Einstein says, it's insanity. So the idea of sanity is actually being able to go through crushing moments and show up and still be there, opposed to it's actually insane if how you react to moments when crushing situations happen, and how you are not sane because you don't know how to deal with it. And a lot of people are insane by not getting into the position to where anything like that could happen. So they go into victim mentality, or they go into a place of safety, away from seeing the potential of life itself and what it can be and what else is out there, and what more there is more beautiful out there is what this is alignment is saying. But Saturn is there with South Node trying to deny that and be like, well, I'm going to lose, so I'm going to do what I do best and just be an old man or old lady and just tell people like, you shouldn't do that. But I remember so many old people that told me I shouldn't do this. So many people in my life that told me I shouldn't go this direction, that I shouldn't go to a rave, that I shouldn't do that. That, you know what I mean? And you know what? They all apologized years later.
Yeah, I also feel like the crushing insanity feeling, it's like it's like relentless in the sense that it's a gift because it's forcing you to just acknowledge where you're driving yourself insane. And it can be like, I also feel like the jumping the fence can also be like jumping the fence of your own mind, in this sense of like, what if you just flip the script and you stop telling yourself that like this thing that you are putting so much emphasis on and you are so clear on and this is what it is. What if you just like try it on, like, maybe it's not like that. Maybe that's not like what I think it is. Maybe I don't actually feel that way about it. Like, am I lying to myself about my reaction to this, or like what it means to me? And like, I don't know, I feel like that's like a layer of it too, of just this like, it's almost like pretending to care about things you don't really care about, or like, because it feeds that old integrity and identity, and just like jump the fence, like just like let shit go, like move on.
Well, this has been a 35 to 37 year cycle of Pluto Saturn from Libra that hasn't completed, which is Humpty Dumpty sitting on a wall. And so I think a lot of people just keep sitting on the wall, like, and then ironically enough, like I think about Pink Floyd, The Wall, or I think about the book 1984, or I think about a lot of these things and how they were all pointing towards this big conjunction in January 2020. And it's like, the wall represented in Pink Floyd is the judge, the system of how you should be, like you, and like the way that the school system is, and how the cartoon guy, the teacher, presses all the students into a meat grinder and turns them into meat. Like there's this, like, I know it's kind of cryptic, but there is this, like, you know, societal way of how it should be and how it should look, and it's just a wall that just keeps closing in on people so much right now. So this is a moment to jump the wall.
Yeah.
Because it's coming in. It's like the trash compactor in Star Wars. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's coming at you, like, but there's no ceiling right now because there is Jupiter right now.
Yeah.
But the ceiling will be on top of this trash compactor in January. That there will be, and with South Node on Jupiter, you'll think that you could get through, but that's a delusion. You won't. It's in Capricorn. It's in fall. It's like, no.
But it's also like, stop fighting these, like, the judge and the, like, it's like, it's just like, it's not real.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's not, like, it's just like, stop buying into stuff that's not real. Like, it's also really simple, and it's not even like, you don't have to even go anywhere to jump the fence. You can literally, like, jump the fence and, like, jump the reality almost by just, like, calling it for what it is and calling, like, name it. Like, what is, like, all the shit that's coming through that's, like, telling you what you have to do and who you have to be? What's, like, that judge persecuting you for?
I think
and
it's
then, like,
karma. I think it's all of our past life karmas, and we're all trying to do it. And this is the real jump of getting out of past life karma completely and going to a place you've never been before and being like, oh my God, I'm fucking out of all that fucking karma for the first time. What the fuck is this? That's free will, and for a first time. Like,
right, because we can spend our whole lifetime trying to pick up all those pieces of Humpty Dumpty.
Yeah.
But who is that really serving? You know, if we waste much more time trying to pick up these pieces, this guy is broken. Like, Humpty's gone. Leave him, because if you don't, the Sentinels are coming and they're going to get you.
Exactly, the Sentinels are coming.
Wasting your time on Humpty. Save yourself.
Save yourself.
go in the ocean.
Get out in the ocean.
Start swimming.
I think Neptune is go into the unknown more.
Yeah.
See through the projective veils. Like, you know what I mean? Like, go down the yellow brick road and go all the way there and look behind the curtain and see what's really there. And then you'll see what's there and you're like, ew, this little guy. And
Humpty.
because we are all living projections of so many things, right? And everything's a projection in many ways right now. So it's like, you know, like, look behind there and, oh my gosh, am I really trying to, like, buy the projection instead of, like, I already know what's behind the projection?
Right. It's like Oz, like the big scary thing that was telling us it was going to punish us all if we didn't listen. We go behind there and it's like, it is Humpty. It's like all broken up Humpty, and he's
it's
all like
the
this little, like,
box that winds up.
This little weird thing that just wants to have influence, to feel powerful. Were we talking about that?
Yes.
We did a podcast, guys. Real quick.
Wants to have influence to feel powerful. That comes back to, like, literally, this conversation's spiraling so wonderfully. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, tonight I said that this is the true hero's journey. Do you want to be saved or do you want to be the hero? That's your choice. That's what I said this week is.
Ooh.
Yes, and that same thing with, like, the princess and the queen. And, like, I really feel like just getting out of the head, getting out of the mind, getting out of the game, getting out of the, like, the level of participation that's, like, trying to plan and maneuver and plot and twist and think ahead. And it's like
politics.
Just
100%.
like
break
fucking,
free.
Yeah.
With no roles, no attachments. And I think that's we never lived through Chiron consciously through Aries because it's found in Taurus in 77. So this is the ultimate no role. You, like, there's no more like, this is your role in my life. It's like, you're not a role anymore. And it's like, when you let go of that, you heal. But when you continue to create this, we are defined by this, right? We're defined by this. It's like, wait, there's something weird about this definition that just keeps getting weirder and weirder and weirder and weirder. And you're,
it feels a little bit like the people in Get Out, where they're just like
Get out. Yeah, I know. And then you're down there. And, and then that's what I actually, it's funny you bring that up. Tonight I said it's like a hypnotist who's good. Like, numb, sleep.
This is so funny. I've been literally asking, how do we break hypnosis? Like, this is funny. And because I did NLP with another coach who's doing, do you know what that is? Neurolinguist. Yeah. And when they take you through the process, it's really cool.
My other friend, Sarah Delane. Sarah did NLP. Yeah.
It's a Sarah thing. I did it, and it was really cool in one way that, you go into the old belief, and before you go into the new belief, she's like, we're in this conversation totally in the whole thing. And suddenly she says, do you smell popcorn? And I was like, what? I mean, I have popcorn. How did you know that? What? And she's like, oh, it actually doesn't matter. I just have to break the mind's trance in order to, like, before I go to the new one, so that there's like a clean break. And so, like, I've been wondering, because I've been sneezing a lot lately, and I'm like, do you think like spirit guides make you sneeze to like break you out of a hypnosis? Or like, I'm like, what are ways that we can like break ourselves out of hypnosis? Right. And it's like meditation does that. Yeah. I think going on a roller coaster ride at a fair, I think that does that. Joy does that. I don't know, but that's been coming up. So I think that's like what.
Well, I think the ultimate part of hypnosis is being controlled and told how to be, right? Like.
But how does it work? It works by getting you on this loop, and you're like listening, and it just keeps you going on it. So how do you break it?
I think one is by. Well, it's a very Matrix story.
Well, you can shock it.
It's that I think that there are Morpheuses out there that are offering red pills right now. And I think that information is coming at people, and that's what Uranus and Taurus is like, hey, I've got a way out, and it's going to cost you, but it's not going to cost you money. It's going to cost you what you're hoarding. You're hoarding the idea of this reality and how this is where you're at in the Matrix. And that red pill you either take, or no, here's the blue pill. And it's like, yeah, I'm not ready to let go of that yet. Like, okay, there you go. So then sleep.
Yeah, one of my formative influences in human design, John Martin, in Kauai, his tagline for his whole practice is dedicated to the destruction of who you think you are. And I think that now is the time to be willing to destroy who you think you are. Yeah. Because that's the quickest path to freedom. And that's the quickest path to realizing this new true potential that we don't even know the true potential of yet. We have to be willing to just
to go.
It's also, I think about like astrology, why I love astrology, why I love human design, is because when you hear something reflected back to you that is an objective mirror of your true chart, right? Of your true truth. It is so like, you're just like, I fucking knew it. Like, it's so activating and so neutralizing, and so like it lands because there's already something within you that knows it. And when it lands, it cuts off the hypnosis.
It's a great way to break it.
So a great way to break it is to educate yourself through these other systems, which is why I fell into astrology in the first place. Like I have Sun, Neptune on the Nadir, and I was like, I was studying the wrong chart for the first year and a half because I didn't have the right birth time because of the story I was told about my birth time. And then I get my chart, and it's like, like that's but that's how it works. It's like in these threads and these layers, and the whole thing is just, the story is told to you. Your lane is given to you in all these different tools. You just have to be willing to let it be destroyed. The illusion be destroyed.
Yeah, and that's what Pluto and Saturn are doing with the South Node. It is a delusion and an illusion destroyed. And I think that's the hardest part, is that we attach ourselves to these delusions so deeply. And then this moon in Scorpio is having to really look deeply emotionally with the squares to Leo, but with the trine to Mercury, but with the sextiles to Saturn and Pluto, with the trine over. You got to look at the dignified positions, though. And the Leo sun is the number one. So it's like, that is the point to look at, with the yods pointing with the square, that basically this emotional attachment is like deep, gnarly, like just overly intensified into creating some sort of, this is what's giving me life, but really actually it's not. It's not. It's like it's the default position of the moon, like, it's not. It's actually not creating. It's not creating. It's actually just me sitting here taking, and there's not that much enough. So I'm like, where's enough, like a drop of water, like off a fucking tree? Like, it's like, sure, you're getting enough, but not enough. You know what I mean? Like you're not, it's like you're starving yourself, for ingesting a feeling that really is holding on to something that is not even being reciprocated.
It's not sustainable.
Yeah.
It's collective Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah.
We're a little bit too enmeshed with the things that are keeping us small and stuck. So we have to get radical. And August is the month to do it.
This week is the red zone. I called it like 4th down and goal. Like, it's like you either go for, and this is most playbooks would be like, no, go punt the ball. Most people are going to go punt.
This is I was using a quarterback metaphor like an hour before I came here. This is just we're so in flow, you guys. This is so great.
Well, and so I said also, and I hate to bring up the shootings, but also at the same time to kind of divert from the shootings, which we know we've said, and I said tonight, it's a horrible thing, and there's a lot of compassion and care about those situations, but we are doing the neutral thing. So for a moment, it's like in baseball, there was one of the worst fights ever, too, like during this time. Like a pitcher stormed the freaking dugout and got in a huge brawl, and then the whole team's just going, and like coaches getting involved and punching the face, and it was insane. Like the umps could not handle it. So people right now, if there comes a point in their life right now where it's like, oh yeah, I'm holding on and it's all good, there just becomes a break point that's going to happen with this Uranus. And people, if they're not truly in that space, guess what they're going to do? Like, you know what I mean? Like the Leo is like going to be trying to get out of the cage. Like, get me out of here. You know what I mean? Like, like, like people are not going to be able to handle it. That's the dark side of the shadow side of Leo. If the sun is put in a position it doesn't want to be in, or it doesn't get its own space to kind of, you get to go do what you want to do and shine your own way, and if anybody wants to show up, they can, or whatever. If you put it in the wrong spot, boom.
Also, the shadow, right? So it's also like the fighting with everyone else, those
Black holes,
are like shadow projections fighting, rather than seeing when I have this outburst. Yeah. That's showing me something.
Right.
That's showing me where I'm actually keeping myself caged in this identity of like, I have to be this person. Yeah. You're actually trapping yourself in the idea of who you are, and also the ego is going to fight. Like there is going to be resistance to crossing that threshold. So expect the resistance, and then there's tools. Like we have tools to work with it. And like, that's where it's like, just question, just like try on for size, this idea of like all this charge, all this pent up, like, it's like a part of you doesn't feel that way.
Right.
There's something else, like that's the shadow game.
But it's almost like, do you have to fight? I'm going to use the Mayflower again. Instead of my ancestors saying, we're going to fight the king to fight back from Catholicism back to Protestant or whatever, they just said, we're making a boat and we're out of here.
Right. They just listened to what they actually wanted to do versus like fighting and projecting it out.
We have no idea where the hell we're going. I mean, Jamestown was found, but they like just kind of went whoop.
Right. So it's like, but you just take care of yourself in terms of like,
and it's a risk though, because they had scurvy. There was no vitamin C, so they lost teeth. They were, it was just like gnarly. So, but I don't think with this Jupiter aspect in Sag, like, it's like, like you're gonna have plenty of vitamin C, and you're gonna have, it's like gonna be it reminds me of Willy Wonka, like, like in his factory, like you could pick off anything and eat it. Like everything is there that you'll need, like. The illusion is that it's not with Saturn. No, you'll be scarce on the other side of that wall. It's like, okay, motherfucker, like, like that's why I love THX 1138. That movie was like, Lucas's first movie, and it was literally like people like living in this underground world and they didn't even know they were. And a guy finally breaks out, and the end of the movie, he wakes up and he opens up the door and he's actually on Earth. Like, it's a crazy movie. And this is what all the books have been saying, and all the movies have been saying, and everything, and all this has been the biggest warning that everybody, that's the thing, is the hypnosis is to get us away from 1984, the book, or, you know, any Orwellian kind of control society system, and everybody playing in the box. And this is where people kind of go, yeah, I ain't going to do that. Or I'm going to do that. And then it's like, okay, I'll wait and see what happens. We all know there's like some sort of really weird, like ushering people into a certain place for some reason right now. That's the dark side of also the reason why I said red line is this week and it ends on Sunday is because as Uranus goes retrograde, it trines the moon in Capricorn, trines Uranus before it retros. And then it goes, sorry, now I'm going to go occult with Saturn and Pluto and the South Node, and Uranus retrogrades, and there's the moon on top of those things, and it like seeds and cements the illusion, or like it kind of takes in the military it was roll call, you know, it was like, you know, muster. It's like, Palmer, yes, here. But if it's like you jump the fence, it's like, Palmer. Oh, I guess cross that name off the list. You like, we're gone.
I think we're testing ourselves. I think no matter what the aspect, no matter what the perception or what it seems like is happening, like who's, you know, gathering forces to take over our world or whatever, no matter what the story,
they're going to fail.
It's still us. It's still us participating in that scheme of us versus them. And I think collectively, in a sense, we are testing ourselves a little. Like, we have to be faced with junctures like this sometimes to make us leap.
Yes.
So that we can find it in ourselves to not be a lemming anymore and not jump off the cliff, but, you know, jump the fence. And I think, it's not like about this, we're being funneled into our demise. It's like we have to have pressure, we have to have tension, we have to have initiation, or else things don't change. And when things don't change, we stagnate.
But that is demise, I would say.
Yeah.
Well, that's
death. Apocalypse. It's the unveiling of it, of the truth.
But that's not happening. I think what's happening is we're all feeling everything we're talking about, and we're feeling the pressure. Like, but we evolve. It might be sometimes we can evolve in leaps because that's like our nature is to like really jump that fence. But if you're alive, you will evolve somewhat. It might be like a little fence, like you might hop a little fence. But I don't know. I'm just like, I think that no one's going to be held back. Like nothing's going to let you. Like, I think that that's the love of the universe right now is it's like, you can't.
Well, there's a natural law that, again, I'm going to quote Jordan Peterson. So we derive from lots of different creatures in evolution, right? One is the lobster, and it's based off creating the hierarchy system based upon not social norms, but in our brains. What serotonin does is, of course, makes us feel joyful and great. So the more that a lobster is in the hierarchy and rises up in the hierarchy, it receives more serotonin and it keeps it going. And what happens is if you even give a lobster that's at the lower part of the hierarchy in their structure an antidepressant, they actually feel better and they start to go, right? So that's how they got antidepressants. And I'm not saying that people need to take antidepressants. I'm just saying there's a fundamental part in our brains that there are some people who are in a low energy and they really don't realize that actually kind of going into doing more than stagnation actually is wired in us to actually go farther in this life and to actually have a better life.
But I think they do know.
No, the numbers show that 81% of the people didn't participate in the Revolutionary War, or I think it's like 86% of people like live the very common same life, like as far as like not breaking some sort of norm, feeling unappreciated, incomplete at the end of their lives.
Something's coming to me about human design, actually, and being a manifester, and how having this awareness, this consciousness about being a manifester, and the strategy is to inform. And as a manifester, your role is to initiate and activate. So before, when we didn't have any of that, and we were really run in a system that was really like conditioning manifestors against activating people. So they weren't activating and initiating. So people weren't even given the activation or the initiation, and the manifestors didn't have the strategy or the awareness to know that they needed to do that. Whereas now, this is like the new evolutionary spiral, is as a manifestor owning that power and that role to initiate, and also doing it consciously through that nonviolent communication and informing. So it's like, and that's where I'm seeing in my own personal life, there are cycles that are ending, that are closed, but I don't have to close the door on that person. I don't have to like say, you're a sheep, stay in the herd, I'm gone, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna leave the door open, and I'm gonna inform you of what it's gonna take for you to come, if you wanna come. I'm gonna give that gift and keep the door open, but like, I have to consciously do that and know that it's my role to do that. And before, I would have resisted that and felt in that kind of like, it's not for me to tell you, but it is. Like, if you're conscious and you're with people that are not conscious, or they're in that low energy, it's like, people know. They just need to like share your light, like your candle light.
I feel like it's a responsibility for you to do what you do, but it's the responsibility for others that get the activation door open to them, that there's a responsibility of this life to do something with it. And that's what the new integrity is like responsibility to actually step fully into your greatest self. Like any good story, it's gonna have a crazy, dramatic moment. And I think that's what this is. It's glossed over with beauty, but it's like underneath, it's going to be dramatic here for, I think, a lot of people that didn't figure it out during the eclipse. Like, I think that's where I'm calling the deepest red line. I think for those that did, I think that already on the other side of the fence, it's kind of like, just keep going, don't look back. Like, don't get, don't get the old, like, come back for me and help me, or come back, it's better now. You know what I mean? Where it's like, no, So I think it depends on where you're at in this like weird little juncture point here. But there is a lot of data that shows that majority of even the universe, hierarchy systems and animals and stuff, a lot of people don't want to take that responsibility on. There's nothing wrong with that either.
No, and I don't think it's anybody's role to ever go back. I think you leave the door open and you reach out, but you have to keep going. That actually is a duty of being in a part of a species that is evolving, and we want to continue evolving. It's just a matter of also not dragging people with you. Yeah. So
because that's resistant to you, actually. It's not even
them.
Of course, but again, we're talking about today what is good for you, right? So it's like, why would you be a tugboat to a huge freaking boat full of a bunch of people? You know what I mean? Be like, ah.
That's old paradigm. It's not your job.
But the beauty of it is, everyone has such a unique access point to their highest empowerment and their next step and their next quantum leap, that it could be very possible that there's a generator out there with a defined heart that is here to pull that tugboat, and that is their next quantum leap evolution.
Right.
So, like we're saying, the integrity thing is totally being rewritten, and it is being rewritten to better match the very, fundamentals of who we are as beings. What are the codes written into your literal vehicle and consciousness? Yeah. That's where you find your definition of integrity, not from any outside authority.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think in the whole relationship thing, because this has so much to do with relationship and with all of the Mars, Venus, Juno, Sun, Mercury, just like teaming it through. Yeah. So like it's also like rewriting the story of how we partner up and walk together and like help each other. It's not carrying each other, but it's like actually getting to know what is the design of somebody, what is their code, and what they need in order to like make the most of their code, and not what you need from that code.
Right.
Well, it reminds me of the last episode of the last season of Game of Thrones. Like, okay, if the White Walkers are coming, of course it would be those people and at the end that were together to be able to fight them off. There's this moment of like having to choose right now. Do I feel safe next to this person really to go through whatever's coming? That of course will be defeated and it won't be bad or whatever, but it is going to have the illusion of fear and scary. Like that's just truth with South Node on and eclipses on top of Pluto-Saturn conjunctions, because there was a lot of fear in 82 and 83 with those. I mean, it was intense. And it even went in 84 because of course Saturn and Pluto followed each other in Scorpio for a while. So it's like, are you gonna be with the right? This is the moment where it's like, is this who I'm gonna be next to when I go through that? Like, really? Or am I gonna go look outside and see? Because I could come back.
Wasn't it the highest divorce rate, the last Saturn?
It was the build up to Saturn Pluto, yeah.
Yeah. So there's also something there too, how that when we look back in hindsight, scientifically, that wasn't the answer. Like people kept getting remarried and getting in new relationships, but the same things kept happening. So it's also like this conscious uncoupling or this conscious commitment. Either way, it has to be an internal ownership of what's not working, partnered together. And it can't be like a blame of, it's just gonna happen again. So it's also like just breaking free and jumping the fence and being like, I'm free. I'm not going to let this happen to me anymore. It's like you played a role in that. So are you clear on what your role was? And did you iron that out, or are you conscious of that? Or are you just like trying to clear? It just doesn't work. So there's something there too, where we need to be honest about the fact that just walking away and being like, oh, I've outgrown this and I'm better.
I don't think I was saying it like that. I think there was a lot of talk about how it's like, it's very clear. It's clear of what the patterns were. It's clear of what you've created and manifested, and that there are just things that don't work, and that there are some things that are more important, like your own happiness and sovereign self, and that is not aligned with the code of who you are, no matter how much our emotional attachments want to try to reform it, because actually we are doing worse, I would say, by trying to reform something into the way that we emotionally, subconsciously don't even realize we're trying to create somebody to be somebody when they're not. Right.
It's not so it's more so just being,
I would say,
just
that,
honest. Just honest.
Yeah, it's like pure honesty. And then.
Yeah. And like it's clean though.
It's clean.
Yeah.
I just went through a divorce, trust me.
Yeah. If you're not like unclear, like, oh, this didn't work because this person did this. No, it's like, it's clean if it's like.
It's just clean when both people are honest and both people are just like, that's it. That's not, and then move on and that's it. And you learn, it's at post breakup or post divorce, you sit there and that's where you do all your processing. And you learn it all and you see it all, because you can finally be separate from it to see finally and be like, whoa, that's what was really going on. Holy shit.
That's potentially where I was self-sabotaging myself by playing into these tropes and roles that I didn't even realize I was playing into. And, I think in Leo season, there is this element of the child, and I think the child can have an element of forgetfulness to it. And I think there are good things about that, because it helps us find our innocence, helps us rediscover that just presence sometimes, to be a little forgetful. But also we don't want to just walk off into the sunset thinking that by doing so, that's what's all good and we're self-righteous and that's awesome. We do have to have accountability, and that's the highest form of courage, I think, is to be able to see your own part in the things that you don't like and see your own shortcomings and accept them and love them and still accept yourself. So
Without the attachment to still the past life kind of karmic thing, like still the detachment from that though. It's like, okay, yeah, that was, and learning from it, and that's in the archives, and I learned from it, but I'm also ready to jump this fence because I am ready to get out of cycles of the same karmic stories that I'm replaying and see a different story and actually move on because like if you ever try to erase pen, it doesn't look good. If you ever try to, like there's something about even like today, like when you write, like even if it's computer, we're in a society now where it's like easily to erase something, where forever it's never been that way. I think that there's this whole like thing now where even you can't erase text messages. iCloud is backing it up, or Android's backing it up, or the government's backing it up, or there's no more erasing anymore. So there is this kind of point to where it's like, am I really going to try and rewrite it? Like, it's like a film. Like, are you going to try and splice that and cut it and edit it, and it just didn't work? You get to reshoot it, and and then you can come to a point too where there's movies that just bomb. There's movies that just doesn't matter, and they become some cult classics for some people, but for most, it's like, yeah, no, I don't
or
like
you
that
take
movie.
so much time and energy trying to edit everything out perfectly, but then you miss the Starbucks cup in the middle of the shot, and it totally ruins the mood.
Which I want to, and we have to end the show right now, but I just want to say that you bring the best point up about the edit, because that's what's coming in Virgo with Mars, Venus, with the sun, and it's like, are we going to edit our lives in a space where it's not so much about editing, but creating with all the grand trine aspects of Earth and this awesome Uranus retrograde that's here, and with Saturn kicking into direct motion in Virgo? Or are we going to be trying to re-edit? You know what I mean? Like, that's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, I'm like, there's such a, I think it's like kind of nuanced in this. For me, it's like not editing in order to get it to this perfect idea and perfect form, and also being willing to go back and give it another try to like bring out more potential, because you look at it and you're like, I see something I could do even more with it. So is it to expand it, and that Leo like.
But that's what society did to O.J. Simpson. You know what I mean?
Wait, what?
Like, we kept giving him a pass, like, even though he was found non-guilty, underneath we all feel as a society like, no. And then of course the karma replayed it out. No matter how much we tried, of course he would end up in prison again, and then doing some crazy thing like holding people at gunpoint to get old memorabilia of his. I don't think you know the OJ story.
No, I don't know the whole story.
What I'm trying to say is that no matter how much we're trying to go back, like, this is literally if you just do the math, there is no more out.
Yes. Okay. That's what I'm trying to say is not good. Thank you. Because there's like, don't go back and fix something, editing it that way, but using Virgo to refine it, to bring something more out of it.
Right.
So is it going forward versus.
But that's like what they did with OJ. Like, after he found out guilty, he had to deal with a bunch of people thinking he was guilty, and he tried to redefine himself, and everybody put a lot of like, oh, it's OJ. Yeah, I guess he's non-guilty. It's okay. And then it always goes back in another direction, though, to, you know what I mean?
What if I'm talking
and
more
we are coming into the OJ times where...
It's so funny. I'm more like, what if we watch the show back and we're like, you know what would be dope is if next time we put like a different light color instead of the white light, and you like try that to make it more fun. I'm
hearing like, let's refine what's working.
Yes.
And unearth a deeper layer of its perfection and beauty. Let's not try and pretend like the serial killer is a really great guy.
Yes. Thank you, Dylan.
No problem, guys.
We're on the same page.
Yeah, like I think with Uranus right now, it's clear what's working, like amazing. I think that's the whole part about Uranus, is it's not trying. Uranus is the ruler of the skies, the heavens. It's a stairway to heaven, or I said last week, or it's Hotel California, where it's like, it looks beautiful, it's great, but you can never leave, And that's where, but this is a stairway to heaven moment, or a Hotel California moment, where like you're entranced by it. She drives a Mercedes Benz, and you can get in there, and then they tell you can't leave.
So heroin or DMT, the choice is yours. Just kidding.
But you know what? You bring up a good point, though, of like, if you were to use a drug analogy, I mean, it's like trying to say, yeah, I'm off heroin now. I'm doing really good. Like, you know, like I'm going to redefine this. I mean, I know I've shot up, like, you know, I've relapsed 4 times, but I really got this one this time. And I'm going to just continue to try to redefine that. And then if you do the data, it's like, no, unless there's some really hardcore rehab and some really hardcore, like changing all the people around you, everything, you know, you have to completely change the whole system of your life. So, you know, but like same thing with alcoholics too, you know, they die usually.
Let's do our final remarks.
Yeah, I would, you guys, yeah. Close it out.
Sarah, you start. Initiate us.
That was a hard transition point to go on. I feel like this is a moment to make the most of your life with what you have and who you are, and to not hold back and to not be afraid of going for it, of trusting who you are and feeling good about that, and feeling good about your unique role, and all of the ideas that there's a right and there's a wrong way to be. There's a certain person that needs you to be a certain way, or a certain job that needs you to function in a certain way. It's like, if it doesn't work, there's a reason for that, and there's a reason for you. So I don't know, just follow your joy, break your hypnosis, and be who you really are and have fun.
There's a cricket down there.
Yeah, I saw him over there many times earlier.
Jiminy is here. Very sun trine Jupiter. Jiminy Cricket is here in the building.
Oh.
But that was the whole thing about Jiminy Cricket, is Jiminy Cricket, you know, was there to help Pinocchio get through. Remembering him how to become a real boy. Like, he was the one trying to keep him, and then Pinocchio ended up not, and going with the fox that took him down to the boy's isle that tried to turn him into a donkey.
There's a cricket in Mulan too.
So they say crickets are good luck.
I do want to say actually one more thing. I believe strongly that the reason why things like alcohol kill people is not because of that substance. It's because of a deep-seated loss of worthiness and loss of connection to like who you are, and the worth and the like, you matter. And so just everybody like really, it's like that coming full circle of like punishing ourselves. It doesn't matter how late in the game you wake up to your worthiness and how much you've done to go against that. I mean, that's like why I'm so passionate about shadow work, because it's like what matters is today and tomorrow and the next day, and you matter. And that's why it's so important that we don't point at somebody and say, well, you would be worthy if you showed up in this way for me. Like, don't do that to other people, and don't do that to yourself, and give yourself the chance to just be like, you're here. Like, please, like, it does not matter. Just like, give yourself that.
And I'm just clearing we didn't get to finish my whole alcoholism thing. I was just saying the data shows that if you don't change the environment completely around the alcoholic, right? And the people they associate with, and the town they're in, at the pub they go to, and there's a lot of things that go with the data, that it does turn into just oblivion, basically.
Yeah, I do agree with that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, for all of you out there, I think I would just want to remind you that you know the truth by the way it feels. And if there's any area in your life where you feel like a victim, or you know that you're taking on the victim role, I challenge you to start tomorrow, start a new day, start this very transformative week, daring to just bring as much of yourself into your body, into your being as possible, to make sure that you're full before you walk into these places where that maybe you feel small, maybe you feel unwanted, maybe you feel unseen, misunderstood, whatever. I challenge you to use all of your soul and your spirit and your heart to just drench yourself in your own love and in your own acceptance, your unconditional acceptance of who you are in this life, who you came to be, the body you were born into. And from that place of intention of unconditional acceptance of yourself, see how when you radiate from that place, it can change in a quantum way, meaning in a way that doesn't require you to necessarily confront and change and do all these different things, but rather just by your presence, see how you can change the situations you hate the most in your life, that feel the most oppressive, that feel the most hopeless, that feel the most hamster wheel. Because you can. It's just about how you enter into that situation. And if you can, you can give yourself that red pill on an inner level. You can use a week like this or a month like this even to see how powerful you've been all along. So that's what I think.
Wonderful, beautifully said. Do you have more?
That's it for me.
I was just going to say, fool's gold exists, people. And fool's gold never is real gold. And lots of people love fool's gold because they get fooled into it. It's easy to access. It's easy to have. But real gold in life is something that is, it's real gold because you know how to observe, you know how to make sure that you look at it from a certain way. And this is a moment where your ultimate ability to have the life that you've ever wanted in your life has never been seen before at this level of height. And so there is a moment where we all have a major jump or not. It's terrifying though, because honestly, a lot of it takes courage, and a lot of it takes that courage is actually on the other side of that jump, which is just being able to love yourself and create the new environment. I've moved, I don't know how many times in my life, and I move into cities just by myself. So it's like, I know that's terrifying for a lot of people, but really it's kind of a liberation for me. Like after learning the courage of like, okay, I got to be okay here by myself. I don't know anybody. I don't know anything. But that's what real gold is. Like the fool's gold is the attachment to like, well, I'm safe here and I don't know what's really going on and I haven't seen my real potential yet. One thing that this life is there is a weight to value of what we do with this life, who we are, and how valuable our power of our love really is. Like there is a check and balance system on that. I know that love is eternal and I know love is great, but there is a deeper and a more pure love, and there is a quality when it comes to love. The same way that, unfortunately, I'm going to use the example of oil. There is crude oil that is greater than other oil. There is bathroom breaks that are smoother than others. And this is a moment where the ultimate beautiful path that is of that deeper, pure love is something that's going to take a risk, but it's a risk that's just a crazy random equation that did not come to some sort of answer, and like fully just like letting it go. And that might be just like a little part in your field of like checking back on something, or if it's been stuff that you still haven't let go of. It might be the most dramatic energy of your life, but you have to realize that on the other side of it is like the purity and the truth and the actual greatness and the rewriting of a new story where you realize you have real gold and not fool's gold anymore. So, and it's easy right now to fall into projections. There are, whether you call that in ourself creating those projections or actual energies that project and look so great, and we can get really caught up into them. And part of the story of the way that we've been trained in the subconscious right now through this crazy society is, you know, whether it's attractiveness or whether it's this or whether it's that, it's like we can fall victim to a lot of things that are fool's gold right now and give that as the out to what is not working. Like, oh, let me give you an out right now. And this is a hard time in life because those that do succeed have to learn that, you know, being acceptable is sometimes to our demise. Accepting, you know, like in business, there's a part that's hard, right? Where it's like, I can accept, you know, your mom's sick and this person's sick, but you know, it's like there comes a point to where it's like, if you're not here or if you're not able to do your job or whatever, like, you know, like, sorry. And we're in a world right now where it's not that life's a job. The only thing is that if everything is just not right now feeling, like Dylan said especially, you can feel it. And this is where it's like the ultimate test of your integrity of what real love is to fully love yourself enough to not be caught up in giving that love away to something that takes away from your purest love and drains you completely. You can catch us on highvibe.tv. Craig has the links for the spirit advisor here, Dylan, and Sarah Paasch, and I love having you both on. And Dylan and I are going to do a video, I think, Thursday. Mm-hmm. And we're going to be talking about some human design and stuff. And I don't know, there's just a lot of great stuff going on. You can find these two at the High Vibe TV school and click school on highvibe.tv. And we appreciate you being here and just love you all for being here. And remember that there is no right or wrong way. There is only the way that feels truly within yourself that you know that is so clear. And it's whether you call that high vibe or whether you call that just easy. So I've been into that space now for a while, and you all watched me in the opposite. And I can tell you the other side is way easier. I love you all.